I promise these aren't just flex pictures. I just post these so you know that I'm not playing around when I say that this is how I make my apothecaries. I want you guys to see that this is real. Anyways, welcome back to Project Apothecary. The whole idea here, right? 5 different strategies, 5 different builds. With the builds are cheap. That's the whole part, the second part of the project, right? Keeping the builds cheap, and the strategies start at low investment, and then we boost the investment as we see necessary in order to increase our currency per hour. The whole goal of this project is just Mageblood isn't actually that far away. You just have to know how to approach it, and you just have to want to play the game, right? And so that's what this is about. It's just giving you different ways to play the game. So this this episode is about crop rotation. And so, like, the first thing is, why would you use crop rotation? Why harvest? Yada, 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 right? All right, look at these pictures on the screen here. On the left side, this is an uninvested map. This is like from my Out Can Go series on the left side. And then on the right side is from when I started using Cestus and Scarabs. And you can see in both cases, there's a lot of money on the floor. Just straight up, it's a lot of money. And so we get to play around with crop rotation, which is the new Harvest Keystone. And the main reason why for me is because I hadn't played with crop rotation yet, but I had heard good things, and it seemed like a lot of fun getting stockpiles of T3 seeds and even more T4 seeds that I had seen in some of my regular farming in the previous league. So I figured, why not? And I was definitely rewarded for it. This was an extremely fast apothecary, honestly, in terms of playtime. So let me go ahead and very quickly explain to you like how I actually do this. You'll see on the freeze frame here up the screen that I'm in a new harvest plot. And the big things here of note are that I have 2 purple off and away. Then I have, there's 4 plots total. 2 purple off and away, 2 yellow purples close to me, and a blue purple also nearby. And so the ideal thought process is, this is with sextants, by the way, that's why there's so many purples, is that I'm going to click on purples to then boost up either the yellow or the blue. And now, remember, I'm going to give you guys the tip that you want to prioritize the one that you have the least of. However, I'm pretty sure in this, I actually opted to try to play for the yellow, or maybe got screwed, right? You kind of have to be flexible with this. But the big thing is that you count up how many you have. You see, there's no way you're going to get a reasonably boosted purple, especially when you factor in wilting possibility. But you can get a pretty well boosted blue or yellow. And that also allows you to click on a blue or yellow on the way there. So you always want to start with things that are double the same color that you don't want. So double purple is where we're going to go first. Next, take the purple from the plot with the least amount of potential yellow. Now we make a tough choice. Yellow or blue, and how many of each? I opted for the yellow to get more potential T3 upgrades on the blue. That was the map that I worked with out in my head. Also, there's a very interesting bug that you get to see in this clip here, where you don't actually get the right amount of things showing on the tooltip. I really hope this gets fixed, but get used to counting the seeds on the ground yourself. This is actually the moment at which I learned this. And then just reap the rewards. Granted, these were not that big of rewards because I kind of got baited by the terrible tooltip earlier, right? But reap the rewards nonetheless. Just to show you guys, like, sometimes you miss, but most of the time it works out pretty well. Now that you've seen like a rough idea of how I approach the map, because it's a little bit overwhelming to like see it for your first time. You're gonna have to do a lot of trial and error. But once you've got that idea in your mind, here's the method, right? Here's how we do it. So starting out at Out Can Go, I have a tree down in the description that you can grab. I have a lot of extra small passes on there that are just to get extra value, right? Mod effect is pack size and quant. Map dupe is for particularly the drops off of the boss, but also, regular maps are still money when sold in bulk, or they sustain yourself. Like I was sustaining off of my own maps. And then Quant and Rarity small passes again. Quant is good for our drops off our Life Force drops. Now, what maps do I run on? The whole idea: run to the boss quickly, right? And so, maps you can run to the boss quickly, such as like City Square, Mesa, Dunes, Estuary. There's a long list. There's a good list of maps that have very quick access to their map boss. Mud Geyser even for a natural 16 or a natural map that's pretty easy to get to the boss on. But I chose Mesa and Dunes because both of those maps are adjacent to one another, so they sustain off of one another pretty easily, and it drops the Fortunate, that div card that gives two divines, right? Just very consistent source of money to add on top every so often while I'm killing things. And I did get, I think, two full sets of the Fortunate in the process of doing this, so it actually did like contribute a decent portion to the money just picking the right map. And the difference between Mesa and Dunes has to do with mostly how I felt about the maps I was running. In the earlier stages, I was running Mesa due to how easy it is to access the boss. Like literally just run up the hill, run into the boss room, run down and run around the map and go, right? Like it was pretty quick and easy. Dunes is a bit more of an annoying trod all the way across over to the boss, and you end up like killing stuff on the way there, and you kind of get mad if you see altars pop and they don't have quant. But the expedition positioning tended to be a lot better on average for Dunes, as well as Dunes just having more maps or more mobs in that map. Pick your favorite, not a really big deal. Works in a lot of maps. Just make sure it's an open area so that expedition actually does work properly. And then you just run the maps, right? Like there's not a lot to it. Roll your maps, make sure you can actually run them, and then run them. Rush the boss, click good altars, hit the expedition, and then the harvest. I always did expedition then harvest just because in my head harvest has always been the end point of my map. If you want to end on expedition, end on expedition. That's up to you to figure out, right? But this is just my order of how I ran them. That was my method. And then when we started investing, you'll notice that the map selection and running the map didn't change. It's still the same maps and it's still the same process. The only difference is that now we're using scarabs and sextants to really like pump it up, right? And so that's two parts. We are using growing hordes in our investment tree. Again, tree will be in the description so you can see that as well. And so we just take 4 polished scarabs that were dirt cheap, and that's what I did. I ran some numbers after the fact. 3 gilded scarabs seems to be a little bit better than having 4 polished, but I didn't do all that math. I was just like, man, I'm printing, who cares? I was like when I say I was printing, so didn't really matter to me all that much. The sextants, the 3 mandatory sextants are a Sacred Grove sextant that forces harvest on every map, as well as uh blue or purple plant sextants, not yellow plant sextants. Yellow plants is what you want to take for money, but you don't take yellow plant sextants because you don't actually want to see yellow everywhere. You want all of your plots to converge into your yellow. Remember that from earlier, right? Converging into the yellow. Pack size is always good because that affects the magic mobs that spawn in build expedition and in harvest. Therefore, more potential logbooks, more potential life force, right? And then a fourth of choice, I went with Gloom Shrine because I'm addicted to pops. And pops just make it so much easier. And also the Physics Chaos for my build, I was playing with Conviction and Ignite. That gain this chaos actually does increase my DPS. Then again, maps, run the map, you know the deal, right? Same idea. We just put a little bit of money behind it. The investment per map is actually not that steep on this version, and so like you'll totally make your money back just as long as you don't brick the map, right? Even in the case, I think the only time I ever lost money in the individual maps themselves is when my harvest was a 3 plot no yellow. But it's okay because every other map almost any map besides that particular arrangement profits so much on average that it just doesn't matter. Um, then so how do we get rich? Like I've been saying it's harvest, right? Like harvest. It's the number one thing that we're focused on. It definitely made up over half of my actual money making from this strategy. And it's just the life force. Like the life force is so powerful, right? You get a lot of your money from just bulk selling your life force. Use the trade site. Like TFT will get you better rates if you want to post there, but then you have to keep posting there instead of just using the trade. Like use your tab, put a price on it, list it in divines, and just sell them in bulk to buyers because that's where people are really buying from anyways for Harvest Force. Then uh Sacred Blossoms is the other side of it. Those T4 seeds that you get, not only do they drop a lot of life force, right? I think the highest I saw from a single T4 was about 1100, which I actually did get a duplicate proc on from that node on the Atlas tree as well. So like it was a ridiculous hit. But they also can drop Sacred Blossoms, which sell pretty decently in bulk, or take a gamble if you want, right? You can still, like, you kill it, you still always get the Sacred Crystallized Life Force, and therefore you can always then sell that instead in bulk and use the kills of the Sacred Blossom to fish up like a good a Forbidden Shake Up, for example, if you're feeling lucky, right? I'm not, if you're feeling lucky, you're feeling lucky, right? It's a good day, it's a good day. Play it a good day. Just remember, when you're focusing on harvest, you're playing for these T3 seats. T3 and T4 seats are where the real money's at, because they are both T3 and up are guaranteed to drop you life force. Remember that. T2 does not drop life force on guarantee. It'll drop a decent amount when it does drop, but it's not a guarantee. All right, and then next we had Expedition. This is the other like pretty big source of money for me. I don't have like exact weighting of how much, because I didn't track a lot of how much of this stuff I was selling. I just know I was selling it very consistently. The big drop, of course, is logbooks. Any Black Scythe or Knights of the Sun logbook, which is Tujin and Danik, the two vendors that everybody wants to interact with, those sold pretty easily. I was selling selling Danik logbooks at 40C per, and Black Scythe at 30C per. Very easy, consistent money that you're going to keep seeing, because you're stacking quant. And since you're stacking quant, you're just going to continue to get it taken care of, right? Also, any of them with the boss, no matter what vendor, also sells well. So keep that in mind as well. Then you have a reroll currency, which there's two approaches. I used option one, and it was because A, it is more time efficient, but B, more importantly, is for the sake of the experiment, I couldn't remember how much of my artifacts were from before the farm versus this experiment, and therefore I have run out of Tujin artifacts before while buying from him, and I didn't want to have that accidentally skew numbers when I was like, using more artifacts than I actually had. But generally speaking, bulk selling them by Divine, again, really only the Danig and Tujin reroll currencies, those sell for good money. But you will get more money using them yourself. Like, my personal recommendation is to sell Tujins and use Danics. Tujin just takes too much time to like use effectively, right? Because you only get the value out of those exotic quench if you're over there buying every single thing that comes through that vendor menu, and that takes a lot of time. I was uninterested in spending that time, so I didn't do that. Instead, I just sold all of them, but rolling Danik to actually buy more logbooks is almost always better. So those are my two options for you there. Then outside of that, we have other major drops that I saw a lot of. Stacked decks. I sold so many divines of stacked decks. From just, blowing up the whole expedition with extreme archaeology, the new Oppenheimer keystone that they added this league. This is a strategy using both two new keystones. They're both incredible. The stack decks were incredible for easy to move currency, as well as good fractured items sold for a good bunch. I had a T2 fractured lightning spine bow that I sold for a couple divs. Stuff like that like comes through, and you do make a lot of money off of those. So keep that in mind as well. And then number 3 is that we do have our altars and mad balls, right? We're running Eldritch Influence. Eldritch Influence from seems that quant is our big deal. That's why we're running Eldritch, because Eldritch Gaze boosts the effect of the upside rather than giving multiple upsides. We want boosted quant. We really, really want boosted quant. Because it just affects harvest and expedition, right? And then divine altars are really also really nice. They're rare, but they're really nice. I think I saw one. Did I see one? I don't remember if I even saw one like during this time period. But if you see them, awesome. Even freer money. And then of course the map boss himself always gives good loot to keep your mind on, right? Will drop connected maps pretty frequently. Drops Guardian Conquers and Synth maps, and then every 28 maps you're gonna get a Screaming Invitation. And that's just always consistent money that you can always rely on every time. Right. So the last thing to talk about here is crop rotation actually the best way to do harvest? And the short answer, unfortunately, is no. You do get better money per hour, assuming proper investment from doing no crop rotation on your harvest. The sextant is just the yellow plant sextants are just too consistent with the traditional method of handling harvest. Um, but crop rotation is a lot more fun, personally speaking, and that's what mattered more for me. But you can't outdo the consistency of the traditional method just because it's fair. Like you don't lose money per map with the traditional method. Like you don't lose money per map. That's the big thing. Crop rotation like is profitable like crazy, but you do have maps where you lose money. Traditional just doesn't, and that's unfortunate. But again, play the game the way you want to play it because playing the game more outweighs efficiency. That's going to be a constant theme throughout this, right? I talked about it in the last video. I'm going to keep talking about how this is really about finding the play style that you want so that you can make the most money through actually playing the game and having a good time. And so builds that I recommend for this. Uh, so I played Wave of Conviction Elementalist. That was my thing. You'll see the video for that coming up soon, talking about how I built the character with the intent div to absolutely annihilate Harvest, even with the sextant that gave things double life. And then the cold shockwave totem Hierophant actually that I did is pretty good for this as well because it freezes. Hexblast mines for a very similar reason, high damage and freeze. The general gist of this is that you just want good AoE coverage supported by either explode or CC. And there's a couple exceptions to this. Like for example, I did this in a previous league on a Pathfinder, a poison Pathfinder, and instead of CC or explode, I was just really tanky. Right, I had good poison damage, and I was fairly tanky through things like elemental flask and divine flesh and all that good stuff. Right, there's a handful of ways to do it. Really, it's just making sure you can kill everything and they don't kill you. That's all you need for this strategy. These are just a couple things that I recommend because that's how I pick. I really like explode for this. Last week I played bleed bow for this because it has explode built into the build. Pick what you like, right? Again, play the things you like in the content you like, and that's all. Like that's it, right? I just wanted to show you guys very quickly how I made my money and how good crop rotation harvest actually is. If you want to see what we're doing live, hit me up on Twitch. It's you can see it up on the screen, but it's also going to be in the description. I'm live pretty much in the like early afternoons. I do have work in the evenings during the week, but then on the weekends, starting like Friday onward, I do stream longer into the night. You can see what we're working on the other apothecaries. Come through, have a good time. It's good vibes, right? Come through, ask some questions even. Like this video if it helped you, or even consider giving me a subscribe, right? If you if you rock with the content and you want to see what we're doing, because we're always going to be doing more. But thank you guys for watching. And I look forward to putting out more content for you guys. Take care.